Welcome back to another episode of Letter Boss, and we have a guest today. I'm really excited about hearing his story. Skyler Jenkins with Change You Can Wear.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear how you came up with that name and how you started this business that is basically you take older coins and you turn it into jewelry.
Yep. Yeah, that's how I definitely got started for sure. Yeah.
So do you mind telling us your story? We like to tell everybody's story of how they started and like the original concept of the idea and what brought you to your entrepreneurial journey of your own business.
Yeah, for sure. So it's kind of an interesting, kind of twisty, turdy kind of a story, but most entrepreneurial type things are, I suppose. So I grew up in a family that was very self-motivated business owners and whatnot. And we got married. My wife and I got married in Arizona. We moved up here. And then a couple years later, a year later, something like that, my parents moved up as well. So, and when they moved up, my brother and I were going to start a fake rock business, making fake rocks, cover rocks. And my dad heard it. And so we grew up making pools and spas and whatnot. So
Nice.
we were going to branch off and do this. And my dad heard it. He's like, well, no, you guys can't do it by yourself. So we made this third partnership. And it kind of ballooned into this manufacturing facility. And we manufactured fake rock wainscotings, cover rocks, all kinds of stuff.
Very cool.
So we did that, and then the crash in '08 kind of put a screeching halt to that. So
Okay.
I found myself, and then during this, I got Lyme disease. So
Oh, wow.
that was the real quirk in the whole thing. That's what really caused this whole thing to kind of push this direction, which is kind of weird. But so anyway, the business went down. I had no more income. And I was sick with Lyme disease, and I couldn't get a regular job. And I'm trying to really figure out a way to make it quick. This is a long story, obviously, but so at that point, I found myself, and it's tied in with faith too. Okay, so
Yeah,
I'm not trying to preach over here.
You
but
can tell
here's
tell your
what
story. It's your
happened.
story to
So-
tell.
So at that point, I was an agnostic person. Didn't believe in God. Didn't really care a look. But I was trying so hard to still work as this business is going down. And so I'm seeing the need there. I'm trying to get into work, and I get in there for like an hour, hour and a half. I'm like, I can't do this. I have to go back home. You just run out of energy. And one day I was just completely my most desperate. I'm like, God, I just need an answer if you're real. And then I felt stupid trying to pray to God. So then I'm like, that's dumb. And then I sat there. It's a long drive from Sheridan back to McMinnville where I live.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting there thinking about what I was just trying to do. I thought, well, I don't even know who God is, so I better figure that out first. So I went and found a Bible, which took me almost a week, which is hard to believe. I guess I could have found a bookstore probably, but anyway, so I found this Bible, I started reading it, and then I got furious and stopped reading it. And so I prayed one more time. I was like, God, if you're real, send me someone to understand this, because I don't think it's real. And the next day, a Christian worker knocked on my door, that, and that made me more mad. So then I yelled at this poor kid. But anyway, during the course of that, I became a Christian. And then really quickly after that, I'm like, God, I need help. I don't have any money. This business is going down. And, I have no idea what to do. And I'm sick. I can't work. And within a month, I was turning on TV for my boys when they were little, and PBS, like Saturday morning cartoons and whatnot. And there was a show, I can't remember the name of the show, to be honest with you, but they had guests on there, and they'd say like whatever interesting thing about this guest. And this one guy had a ring that was made out of a quarter. I was like, what does that look like? And I went to go look, and then the screen changed by the time I got in there. But I started looking into it, and I found out there was a guy who had been doing it since the 50s, selling his rings online. Very few people were making coin rings at the time. And I really wanted one of these Franklin $half rings. But it was like $50, so I couldn't afford it because I didn't have much money. Obviously, the business was going down. And so I took a roll of quarters and just started mashing them up, trying to figure out, how does this guy do this? And by the time I got to the end of that roll, I had a basic, really rudimentary understanding of it. And I thought, ooh, I could make money doing this. So then I started pursuing that, and I think it was 2012, May 2012, actually, I sold my very first ring for a profit, and then I was in business. And from there, it really exploded pretty quickly. And then mix this all in with this conversion I had just had a couple years previous. And I was like, this is getting in the way of, I wanted to be in full-time ministry is what I thought I wanted to do at the time. So I decided, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put how I do this on YouTube, and that should just push me right out of the business. And then it did the opposite. It catapulted me. My YouTube channel blew up, and I'm over 200,000 subscribers now, and which isn't huge in the YouTube world, right? But it's big enough for me to make a comfortable living at it.
That's awesome.
And so now all these people are making coin rings, and thousands of people have learned through these videos, and I talk to them every single day. People are calling me constantly from YouTube, and I'm kind of humbled by that. And I just think that's so cool. So that's kind of how my business started. And then, coin rings, you get a little bored doing it. So then I started moving about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago, into fine jewelry. And that's a lot more complicated of a process. There's a whole lot more money and tools and equipment and things. But that's definitely where my passion lies, though, is making fine jewelry. So that's why I started another business called Sojourn Fine Jewelry. And so I work both of them now.
I love that. I love that story. I love hearing people's journey of how they started. And yours is not the first one that started with a move in faith.
Yeah.
And as yours maybe had been prompted by have to because of the market change. But some folks were just tired of their, corporate job, and they wanted something that really spoke to them. And I hadn't thought about that before, like having to find a Bible. I'm a pastor's daughter, so there's never a shortage of Bibles in the house. But I didn't think about if you didn't have one, where do you find one nowadays?
Yeah, well, I found a really bad one. Actually, I had one from when I was a kid. We went to my mom or my dad or something, sent me to youth group, and I had this Daily Bread Bible. And then over the course of moving, because we moved from Arizona and all over the place in Oregon when we first moved here, there's like that one box you don't unload, and you don't really know where you put it. Well, I found it at the very bottom of that box. I just dug around. Remember, I had one somewhere.
It had stayed with you all that time.
Yeah,
so I hadn't thought about that, though. If you can't find one, where do you go buy one?
Yeah.
Amazon now, right? Next day.
Yeah,
hopefully.
that's pretty easy. Yeah.
But I think I told you like about 5-6 years ago, I bought one of your rings at an auction. I think you donated it to an auction.
Cool.
And I had given it to my husband at the time. And I loved how you had preserved a lot of the coin on it. It still had the date of the original coin on it. And just so it's not just for me, I thought, well, it's like a piece of history. It's not just even a piece of jewelry. It's got so much more behind it.
Yeah.
And you think about the history of that coin and where that had been and gone. There's so much more to that than just a piece of metal. And that's what I love vintage jewelry and jewelry with this. I'd hate something bought just in a regular commercial store because I want something that has a story behind it. So I love that you repurposed it. And it's funny that you should say the YouTube channel blowing up like that. Well, my daughter is 7 and her favorite thing to watch is like those kind of like repurposing like coins into jewelry or where they're making something out of something in the house. And I always see her once in a while, I'll watch her, she's watching a video and then she gets up and she's rummaging through a drawer looking, she's going to try to make whatever it was in the video. I'm like, wait.
Oh, yeah.
That I remember my dad having us, so he was a contractor and a pastor, and he'd have us like give us tools to do things while we were in the shop. And I remember we would hammer coins into and like round them out and change their shape.
Yeah.
And so when my sisters and I were young, he took 2 coins and he'd have us hammer them until and then he'd solder them together and he'd put a BB inside so they'd like shook. And that was like the coolest. Anyway, so that was my first repurposed coins into jewelry
That's cool.
with my dad. So I think that everybody can connect some kind of story back to, their first piece of jewelry thing they made.
The cool thing about coins is everyone has a pretty deep connection to coins in one way or another. And that you really see that a lot over time. Like people carry them around in their pocket, Well, then the other thing about it is when you look at like some of the older $20 Liberty Gold pieces that I make into rings, or especially the Morgan dollars, these are made in the late 1870s, 1880s, 1890s. And you think about the history in that one coin. That coin lived a lot of his life on horseback. I just think that's amazing when you think about where it's been and what it's done. And then so I use mainly common date coins. I know a lot of people think, aren't coin collectors just furious at you about it? Because you're destroying these things that are like 140 years old or whatever. But really, real coin collectors aren't upset about it. So just to throw that out there. And what I mean by it is I use common date coins most of the time. So they know millions of these things were made. Now I do some rare coins as well. I do get flack for that, but yeah. So I've noticed people who kind of only passively collect coins or have a couple coins or their parents left them a coin collection. They're the ones that tend to get irate about it.
I would think though, like I have some old coins that my grandfather gave me, or that my dad was he was big on when we would get money for birthdays and stuff. He would take us to the gold and silver shop, and we would buy old coins, and because he always says gold and silver will always hold its value.
Oh yeah.
And so I have a lot of old coins that I bought at the shop with him, and like I would love. Does anybody ever send you coins to like
Constantly
so something that's sentimental, like that'll just sit in a drawer somewhere. It's never, I mean, yes, it still has the value of the weight in silver, but the sentimental value is why you hang on to it.
Oh, of course. Yeah. And that's a big part of my business. There's a lot of people who have that connection, like I said, and things are passed down, and yeah, I'm constantly getting coins in the mail and making them into rings and sending them back. So that way they have that reminder. I know a lot of people, especially when a family member passes, and then they end up with these coins, and then, you make one for every family member, and that's why they have something to kind of take away and hold on to. And it's not sitting in a box somewhere. And that's real key there, because coins tend to just sit in a drawer, sit in a box. But when you have a ring, you're wearing it, you're looking at it every day, it becomes part of you.
Yeah, it holds that sentimental value. I know that a good friend of mine, her husband had sailed on a ship in the Navy, and the date that was on that ship that she found coins from that year and got for all of her kids. And I was thinking things like that sentimental value of those things you can capture in the jewelry. Especially, I just remember seeing the date on the one that I bought, that you could still so clearly see that date of that coin and what happened, like looking up what happened that year and when that coin was made.
Yeah, and then what it could buy. That's kind of cool too.
What it could buy back then, so much more than
then,
they can now.
A dollar buys a whole lot more. Yeah.
Well, you're increasing its value though by turning it into something purposeful.
Some would say that.
So, well, I looked at the website and it looks like they've increased in value to
definitely.
some degree.
Most definitely. Yeah, I mean. So it's kind of interesting. Value's kind of in the eye of the beholder sometimes, and I'm sure in the real estate market you've seen this. Someone thinks they have something of great value, and it's only a value to a very small group of people, like especially specific type properties. And I was watching Antiques Roadshow one time, and I love that show because you see all the cool stuff people bring in. But this guy brought in this lamp that was made of this shotgun, and the guy's like, "Well, as a shotgun, it's worth $3,000. As a lamp, it's worth $60." So, I mean, there's that element to it. Like, I'll take Carson City Morgan dollars, uncirculated ones that they found, and they put them in these special holders the government did and sold them, and so I'll take those and turn them into rings too, and those are rare coins. And depending on who you are, that might have been damaged or ruined, but I sell them obviously for more. So to me, they're worth more, but not to everybody.
Yeah, depends on what they're going to do with it.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you mentioned having several businesses. Tell me about the other business. They go hand in hand. What is your other business that you...
Yeah, Sojourn Fine Jewelry. So it's my fine jewelry branch of what I do. It's kind of, like I said, it's my main passion, really. Coin rings, I've been doing it for years, and you can make a coin ring without even thinking about it now. I've made literally thousands of them. But fine jewelry is a whole nother thing where you can take... make this amazing, beautiful work of art. And it's kind of amazing. You'll spend months working on something that's a square inch, And I just really like that. And there's also, so the reason I picked the name Sojourn Fine Jewelry too, is because we're in this we're sojourning through life. And I'm big on making jewelry that kind of comes from your life's journey. A good example is there was a person who sent me a little pine cone that they found when their daughter first started West Point. And so they found this little pine cone. They took a picture. I just love that. And I think that's kind of cool. That's their memento. And then they saw that I made a pine cone into silver. So what you can do is you'll make a mold of this pine cone, or invest it, technically is what you call it. And then I'll take that, put it in the oven, and then burn out whatever's in there, like whatever organic material's in there. In this case, it was a pine cone. And it leaves this void, then you can fill it with silver. And so anyway, they sent me this pine cone, and I turned it into a pendant for her. So when she graduated West Point, that was her graduation gift.
Oh, very cool.
And so that is a piece of jewelry that is literally coming from her life's journey, and now she can carry it forward. Awesome. So that's my main focus in Sojourn. So like even the ring I'm wearing, I mine sapphires on the El Dorado bar with a friend of mine that has a mine over there. And so we go and dig these sapphires out of the ground ourselves, and then I'll take them and make rings with them. And
So
that's a big part of my journey. So it could be a part of other people's as well. So
what sets it apart from being, I mean, I know a lot of times it's the metals and the materials used that makes it fine jewelry versus your coin rings, but those are made out of silver and precious metals also. So what makes it transition over as fine jewelry?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's kind of a weird distinction. So there's like silversmiths who really just work on making cabochons. Now, kind of generalizing, I might get some silversmiths angry at me, but they tend to make cabochons. They're soldering rings together, things of that nature. And then coin rings, I wouldn't classify that as fine jewelry just because it's more available to people, and it's really only doing. I used to say I was like a one-trick pony before I did other things because I can make. There's someone that said it to me who was another coin ring maker. He's like, I just bend them and send them. That's really what you're doing. You're forging this ring, and that's all you do. With fine jewelry, you have to know so much more. You have to learn how to solder. You have to be able to stone set. You have to be able to cast. Hand engraving's a big part of it. Not all fine jewelers do those things, but it's just a whole much larger, wide range of things that you work with.
I always wonder that. I mean, I've collected jewelry for years, and like I said, I like vintage jewelry, and so I have a lot of my grandmother's jewelry, and I have jewelry that was given to me over the years from my spouse, and but it's funny is the jewelry that I wear the most, that means the most to me, is connected to like a memory. And like, I was even thinking this morning when I put on my earrings, is like I bought them in a thrift store in Lake Tahoe, and they're like my favorite earrings, but they probably were only like $5 earrings. Yeah. But there was like a story and a memory behind them, and I know there's probably like what I would say my fine jewelry was classified as really was expensive when it was purchased is all sitting in the safe, and I rarely wear it.
Yeah.
But what I loved about what it looked like, most of your fine jewelry is very durable, wearable stuff that you would carry with you every day, like something that would be like something you wore every day.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Yeah, you don't want any, jewelry box jewelry really. You want jewelry you want to wear every day. So that's a big part of it. And I was thinking about, like you're talking about earrings that you found, and there's a story connected. And I make these earrings. They're out of cedar trees. They're like little, what do you call those things? Not the leaves, but whatever they're called, needles or whatever.
The pine needles.
But anyway, my wife and I were kayaking at Lake McDonald in Glacier National Park, one day, and we pulled over to have lunch, and I was sitting under this tree, and I looked up, and I'm like, oh man, those would make amazing earrings. So I picked them and then forgot about them. And then we were in the motorhome some other time, and I saw them sitting in a drawer. I'm like, oh, that's cool. So then I cast those in silver, made those into earrings. Oh, and cool. They're very wearable, obviously, and yeah, I mean, it's just part of your journey. That's really what it boils down to.
Finding things. Do anybody ever send you anything really rare and unique that they want converted into jewelry?
Yes. Yeah, there's been a lot of. I made an elk turd into a gold.
Oh, wow.
1 ounce gold
that's
piece.
Very unique.
There's been a lot of really interesting things.
There must be a story behind that one for them to make that sentimental.
Well, they're the only ones hiking with that thing. I'm sure of that. But yeah, there's things I'm more uncomfortable with a lot of times, like ashes. I usually turn those down now because I just don't want to deal with ashes. It's kind of one of those things, but. I had a mother send me some dried breast milk. I guess it's a thing.
I have actually heard of them doing that to like remember their, or they'd give it to their child.
Yeah.
There's some symbolism behind them giving them life.
Yeah, you can inlay that, and you can do interesting things with that, but it's definitely the memory connected to it for sure.
I know ashes are really, I've noticed that it's more and more common now, their pet ashes, their parents' ashes, their children,
Yeah, and that's just one thing. I don't know why I turn it down, but I just do. It creeps me out. But there's plenty of people I know. I've turned them on to other people I know who do that kind of thing.
Yeah, I do. I've heard that a lot, and I had somebody actually ask me about where to get that done, and I found a place online that lets. But I guess you would. Yeah, you're handling something like if you lose it or something happens to it. I guess you're taking on a lot of.
Yeah, I suppose.
Personal liability up there.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'd rather not. Yeah, I mean, not like I'm gonna lose it, but yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm trying to think. There was something I was just gonna think about.
Where do you source a lot of your coins from? Is there a local place you get them? You buy them online?
Yeah, so I've worked with a couple coin shops over the years, and The best one that I found, usually the best one's a local one to you, obviously. So wherever you're at, look for a good quality coin shop. In my case, in McMinnville, Denny Magden Coins
Okay.
over on Baker, he is my go-to guy. As a matter of fact, I walked in there and I knew nothing about coins. And now, I know a ton about coins and I'm constantly in there buying things from him. So he's been a huge resource for me as I was learning. And he just has a good deal on coins and
They're fascinating. I know my boyfriend's father was a coin dealer, and as one of his things, he was also in real estate. But he's always like, if you've got any coins, like bring. Like I don't think it. I think he's almost 90 now, but it's like that passion for it never dies. Like he still loves looking at them and telling the history behind them. And I would think that's really important to know which ones you're using and the history behind them, so you don't destroy a piece of history or also that you're getting the appropriate value back out of it.
Yeah, definitely. And when you're picking a coin for a coin ring, especially, quality is really, really important. You see a lot of coin rings out there who they're making them out of just lower end coins. And for me, I use AU or BU, which is about uncirculated or bright uncirculated. So it means this coin just was barely spent. It means it's got all its detail there. So that way you really get the most out of that ring because of the quality. And that's why I like Denny, because Denny really understands, grading. You see a lot of coin shops who don't fully understand grading, which is hard to believe, but it's pretty important.
I think that's really cool to have your team that you've put together and you're staying with a local vendor to get a lot of your product
for the most part.
One of the things I always love to ask our guests is like where it sounded like you started out of necessity somewhat, but like during this process of growth, and you mentioned your YouTube followers starting, like where were your pain points in growing a business? Like what was the hardest part about growing and building your own business?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, for me, getting over Lyme disease was a big part of it. So, once, that aside, I suppose, is my dad's been in business his entire life. And I remember whenever I first started, he was like, making the thing is the easy part. Marketing the thing, that's what separates the wheat from the chaff, so to speak. So how to market yourself is really, really key. And so that was a pain point for me as I was learning before YouTube took over. Now YouTube kind of really is my main marketing arm, obviously. But before that, trying to figure out which shows to go to. Should I go market wholesale to businesses and, trying to figure out where to get my stuff in front of people. And that was a big pain point for sure. And then once you get to that, especially when you start putting your jewelry or whatever you're making into, storefronts and whatnot, now you got, cash flow issues because things cost money and those things are just sitting there. They're potential money, but they're not money yet. So cash flow was always an issue at the beginning for sure. Yeah.
I think being like, if you're getting commissioned to do something, then, you're going to get paid right away, but making something in hopes it's what someone wants is a little bit harder in the retail. I had, I was thinking about, you said your parents had been in business for themselves. So that was kind of a natural instinct to have your own business. And I remember my dad always said because whether you go to college or not, or whatever you want to do when you grow up, he's like, find something that you really love and turn it into something you can make money at.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you found something that you're really interested in.
I found my passion. It wasn't concrete. Imagine that.
That wasn't concrete.
That first business, the family business, I didn't know anything different and I hated going to work every day. Yeah. And once I figured this out, I'm like, oh, this is maybe what I'm put here for, Yeah.
And I know that it took me a while to figure it out. I knew I wanted to do something, own my own business and do something in it. And I didn't, like everybody always asks why I got into real estate, but I don't really feel like I got into real estate. I just got into the people business.
Oh yeah.
And it was just about, I wanted to do something where I got to be my own boss and I got to be around people and help people. And so I think for most entrepreneurs, that's a lot of what drives us. It's great that you found something that you love and are passionate about, but I imagine a lot of it is the journey along the way to the people you meet and the lives that, you're putting a product out there that's potentially going to be around for almost ever, and all the different lives that it might touch along the way. Like you had no idea when you donated that ring that it was going to end up being a Christmas present to a loved one. And that, I imagine that'll get passed down in the family because it's something he really treasured. That can carry on for a long time.
And that's a great honor. And I think about that actually a lot because like you said, you can look back and you see jewelry from thousands of years ago that's still around. And that's because people put value into it. Usually precious metals helps that too, obviously, because there's value there, not going to get rid of it. And yeah, that connection, it all boils down to people, like you were just saying in real estate. Really, everything you do in life is going to boil down to relationships and people, no matter what it is you're doing. And businesses, if they're not built around that, that's going to be a lot harder to succeed, I think.
Yeah, you have to enjoy all the people along the way and all the different stories. And then you
Yeah.
found your niche and you found what you don't necessarily want to do.
Right.
And so it's good. I'm always telling real estate agents that it's really not in the work that we do. It is in like the marketing, and it's not in marketing a home. It's really in marketing yourself and the services you give. And I think that's always the hardest thing for most entrepreneurs is, talking themselves up and putting themselves out there. And
Yeah.
now the internet is what a great tool for all of us. My brother just started a unique little business making fishing lures. He's a passion for fishing. And so they're building it all on TikTok. Like it's all,
that's cool.
that they don't have a storefront. They don't have to, it's just all like you get to just tune into their little workshop every night, and him and his wife make fishing lures and sell them on TikTok. So
Yeah.
I just can't believe how much our industry has, in the sales world has changed just with the internet. So
Yeah, I think social media is that connects people to their products to their actual story. Like you were talking about the fishing lures or me with coin rings. People a lot of times aren't buying your product per se. I mean, of course they're buying your product, but they're buying into you and your story and what you're passionate about. And that's an extension. What you're making is an extension of you. So yeah, they're definitely buying you and your story.
yeah, I love that. Well, I thank you so much for coming and telling your story and being a part of our little journey here as we grow. And I like to help, inspire others to start that same journey. Because for you, it was your health and I'm sure the motivation of your family behind it. And for me, staying in business for myself is being a single mom with a daughter. Like I want to be available to her. And so there's many others out there that they don't know that they have the ability to do it. And for you, like you said, you started with little finances to put into it, but really it's about the passion that you have behind it and the need.
Yeah.
So I hope that inspires others to do the same. And I just really appreciate you sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you.